of team protocols following the first test against New Zealand. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, only barely hours after the Prime Minister spoke out in that speech yesterday, marking Tech Week, where he hinted, he hasn't said it yet, but we think we're going to get the speech next week before the by-election, in my view, that he will institute some form of ban on social media for under-16s. The White House has intervened, Miriam.
Well, President Trump has warned the Prime Minister against it, and in a statement, the White House claimed that the proposed ban is too broad and instead should have a narrow focus on sexually explicit imagery and adult commercial content and protecting children from that kind of content. But of course, the White House not happy about this at all. They're saying that they're worried about free speech, but I suspect, Andrew, they're more worried about the profits of their tech companies. And of course, millions and millions and millions of children are on social media for hours and hours a day, which is directly giving money to US tech companies.
And look, these companies make billions and billions of pounds. They are, in fact, in many ways, almost as powerful as the President of the United States.
Absolutely.
The power they wield. And successive governments in this country, I can remember being at a Downing Street summit with Google and companies like that back in 2014 when David Cameron was Prime Minister, and there was going to be an automatic filter which would stop you looking at porn. You'd have to filter in if you wanted to see porn. It never happened.
No.
It never happened because of the power wielded by these companies. And I just think successive governments are fricked, to use Mrs Thatcher's Lincolnshire expression. And fair play to the Prime Minister, who in my view is saying all this because he's in search of his legacy, frankly. But he's on the right track, isn't he?
Well, absolutely. I don't see why US tech firms should be able to run children's childhood in this country. And there are lots of arguments to be had about how to keep children off social media and whether it should be a blanket ban or particular types of content or particular types of algorithms. I think they're all legitimate conversations, but we know exactly why the tech companies don't want this. They're losing a massive market and they're using an opportunity to hook future generations on their product. They're making money out of these children's attention. They're making our children dumber, sadder, sicker, and yet they want the money, and that's what's going on here.
Let's talk to Jennifer Powers, who is the, the founder of the Unplugged Coalition. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
Can I ask you your reaction, first of all, to the fact the White House have effectively tried to slap down the British Prime Minister in suggesting we haven't seen what he's going to propose, but we've had broad hints it will be an Australian-style ban, Jennifer, but the White House trying to flex its muscles here?
Yeah, I mean, pretty distasteful remarks by the President of the United States about British sovereignty to protect our own children. And, you know, on this rare occasion, I have only but positive words for the Prime Minister, who yesterday came out with some home truths. He said that technology should bend to society, not the other way around. And he also was very optimistic about the ability of these tech companies to roll out robust age assurance, which I completely agree with. We know that the tech companies know so much about us, and if they wanted to, they could prevent our children accessing this harmful, dangerous content. But they have chosen not to, as you both were saying, because of course they want eyeballs on the internet. And so, not totally surprised to hear President Trump come out with those statements against banning social media, but very much hoping that this Prime Minister, or whoever takes over in future, should there be a change, holds the line and says, no, we want investment in this country. We want to be a haven for innovation in AI and other technologies, but our children are not for sale. And we are going to draw a really strong line and say, no, they deserve the protection that we can afford them to grow up and fulfill their own potential.
Well, the White House, Jennifer, is saying that it could be more targeted, that it's opposing a blanket ban. What do you make of that?
Well, this is such a fascinating debate. And, you know, Australia did us all a favor by going first because we all are able to learn from that experience. And unlike some, I don't feel it's been a complete failure because there's still millions and millions of children who have been stopped from going on to harmful social media sites and have been given back many potentially hundreds or thousands of hours of their childhood. So just because everyone doesn't comply with a rule or a law doesn't mean that's a failure. I mean, if we think about the speed limit, you know, not everyone adheres to that at all times, but we still think it's a really good thing to reset social norms to have a speed limit. And so one of the things that's been in discussion is having, rather than a brand based, so i.e. these 6 or 8 platforms like in Australia are off limits for our kids, let's do it based on the features and the functions of those platforms. So some of those features, I think viewers will be very familiar with, things like stranger content, sharing of location, autoplay, infinite scroll. And so the idea was this will be much more resilient regulation because from day one of it coming to force, every and all platform or website that has one or more of those addictive by design features would have a choice. They could either remove those features, in which case anyone could access their site, or, as I suspect would happen in pretty much all cases, they wouldn't want to remove them for adults because that's what gets people there and keeps them there, so that they would then have the option of introducing robust age assurance. And despite what the Civil Liberties Brigade say, this is not an attack on free speech or freedom. I mean, there are ways technically to double blind prove your age, which means that you provide that to a third party and they then tell the tech platform, yes, this person is over 16 or over 18, and your details, your identity, your date of birth, etc., are not passed on to the tech platform. So I think there's a lot of hysteria out there, and it's really on the side of some of these free speech campaigners. And listen, I used to work for the Free Speech Union, so I have, you know, I'm a huge free speech advocate, but this is not about that. This is about protecting our kids and doing it in a really modest and reasonable way.
Now, Jennifer, the government intends to protect children. Many governments have intended that before, but we've seen, Andrew's already mentioned, one instance when the government was set to legislate and backed down because of pressure from the tech companies. We saw that repeatedly during the last Parliament. Great intentions here from the Prime Minister, but how do you rate the UK government's likelihood of standing up to the might of big tech?
Well, that really is the trillion-dollar question, is do we have politicians worthy of their position? Will they stand firm and protect UK kids? Listen, I have to say, I'm optimistic. I'm not sure we're going to get everything that we want come next week, or indeed in 3 months when that timer goes off for the device level controls around sharing of naked imagery. But the direction of travel is only one way. And the reason we've seen, frankly, hundreds of thousands of parents revolt over the last couple of years around this addictive technology is because we can see the damage it's doing, and we're just saying enough. So I hope that the government doesn't back down, but if they do, and it's going to take us more than one bite to get where we need to go, we will keep going because the parents of this country will not give up.
Just one final question, Jennifer, if I may. Some people who oppose this ban have said that it's a moral panic. This is just like in the 80s when video games came out, or panic over horror movies in previous generations where parents and grandparents have been terrified about what the younger generation is exposed to. But I'm really interested in young people's own view on that. We know that a lot of young people wish social media didn't exist, and there was a survey published by YouGov yesterday saying that 55% of 18 to 24-year-olds wish they could snap their fingers and make generative AI go away, which is far more than any other age group. What do you think young people think about growing up immersed in technology?
Well, we don't have to wonder because we have the statistics, not only about what they think of it, and as you say, they wish it didn't exist, but also in terms of the impact. We know that children are lonelier than they were 10 or 20 years ago. We know that they have poor mental health. We know that their concentration levels, because they're being interrupted so much and watching so much short form content, that they have a less ability to absorb and retain information, which of course affects critical thinking as well. So we know all the negative impacts. And I think it's really, I love you raising that issue about the moral panic, because it allows me to say, listen, in a lot of those cases, this was a new technology coming in and someone saying, oh, we don't like it, without actually knowing what the impact was going to be. It was like, the television arrived and there was like, oh, we don't know about this. This is very, very different. Because smartphones became ubiquitous in this country and video on demand right around 2012, 2013. So we've had a sort of nearly 14-year experiment on us as adults and as children. And so this is very different because we know the impact and we are talking about what we know because we've seen the impact on children all around us. And those children are now the ones that first got smartphones when they came out. They're now in the workplace. And we see the impact on the labor market in terms of the number of young people who struggle to hold, face-to-face conversations or talk on the phone or have impaired social skills. And we see the impact on the other end of the spectrum on babies and toddlers because they turn up at reception with really delayed speech and language skills because not only have they been online, but their parents and carers, instead of talking to them, have been online instead. So very, very different.
Jennifer Powers from the Unplugged Coalition, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Just to remind you, the Prime Minister said 3 months. He's given the tech giants a 3-month deadline in which to come up with a plan to stop children getting access to nudity on their devices. Well,
Apple trialled it in 2022. The software is there, but will they switch it on? That's the question.
And if they don't, the Prime Minister says he'll legislate. Whether he'll be Prime Minister in 3 months' time, another matter.
That is a very good point.
Now, still ahead, is it ever OK to Skype from school on your birthday? The government is worried birthday bunk-offs are becoming the norm.
But up next, find out why police forces are recruiting more diversity officers, even though the murder of Henry Novak puts a spotlight on those race action plans. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Lots of sunshine on offer across Italy this Wednesday. Still a bit more cloud and the chance of 1 or 2 showers over eastern Spain. A cool breeze blowing in Madeira. Sunny spells, though, for the Canaries. Lots of sunshine for the Algarve. There's that cloudier weather over eastern Spain. Small chance of a shower or 2 here. And inland over Greece, 1 or 2 showers are possible on Wednesday. But plenty of sunshine over the Greek islands. More sunshine to come through Italy. And we'll see temperatures on the rise in Barcelona this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
You're a stripper for nearly 20 years now.
Yeah.
And what you do now has changed. How has it changed and why?
I think beforehand they would book you individually. There would be a lot of stripograms, and that would be bookings for like birthdays, hen parties, and ultimately you would probably be around their house or something like that, or in a small bar. What it's kind of moved into now is more shows. Dream Boys, it's really popular. It's up and down the country. And what you'll find is they'll get 20, 30 girls together and they'll go out and they'll go to the show because they've got the drag queen, they've got the dancers, they've got the stripper, they've got the whole night's entertainment.
Is that because they feel uncomfortable with the stripper, or is it a woke thing? Is it they're concerned about objectifying you because they don't objectify themselves, so why should you be objectified?
I think it could be possibly a bit about... some of them might think if we get them around the house, there might be a person that's uncomfortable with it. Whereas if they book the show, you're free to go to the show or not.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Princess Anne and the way that she has brought up her family is really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, you've got daughter and son who've not taken on royal titles, who've just got on with their lives.
I think now, in retrospect, we can say it was an inspired decision of the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, not to have her husband receive a grand peerage title, which meant, of course, that her children would just be plain Mr. and Mrs. Zara is Mrs. Tyndall, he is Mr. Phillips, and that's allowed them actually to have a much more normal life, not being in the necessary glare that attaches when you have the HRH prefix to your name and become a duke or a duchess or whatever. And yes, they have had great lives in the private sector.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dorothea served in preparation for D-Day. And Dorothea, how does it feel being here today, joining other veterans?
We certainly felt that it had been worthwhile giving up our youth, our years as teenagers. No such things existed. You were a child until you were 14 or 16, depending on the year. And after that, OK, you're fit to be killed for the country. And it was naturally assumed that everybody would willingly do their bit for England. And they would have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 11 minutes to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Crime is rising, and yet still police are splashing out on highly paid diversity chiefs, some on £75,000 a year.
And after that shocking Henry Novak case, pressure is mounting on our police forces to get their priorities straight.
Gordon Rayner is Associate Editor at the Telegraph and has broken a story in the paper today about 3 police forces hiring £75,000 a year diversity officers. Gordon, morning to you. Always good to talk to you. Can you name and shame these police forces?
Yeah, so Police Scotland was the force that we found advertising a job right now for £75,000. Devon and Cornwall looking for somebody on about £62,000, and the Met is looking for somebody on about £64,000. These are just jobs that are advertised right now. They're only advertised for about 2 weeks, so this is quite a sort of brief snapshot. There are a lot of these people who are in these jobs. We know, for instance, that the Met has an entire diversity and inclusion directorate employing at least 10 people. I think it's more than that. And these salaries are not the highest salaries. I know of other jobs where people are earning 90+ thousand as these sort of, diversity and inclusion leads. And some of those in quite small police forces that are quite stretched. And I think that the important thing to stress about the forces that I've highlighted in the story are that they're all areas where crime rates are going up. So, they can little afford really to be spending money on this sort of thing when, they're not managing to get crime down.
And Gordon, what do these diversity officers actually do? What does their day-to-day 9 to 5 look like?
That's a very good question. You would have thought that equality would be something which would be dealt with by any HR department, as it would be in any sort of normal company. But they do things like they arrange training courses. And by the way, we also know that a lot of these forces spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on external trainers. So these people, arrange training courses, but then bring in people from outside and spend even more money on these courses that are obviously very, very contentious at the moment because, as Kemi Badenoch has been saying today, there is this argument about whether, for example, the way that Henry Novak was treated when he was murdered may have been partly to do with the way that officers are trained to sort of treat racism as the foremost thing that they need to worry about, and that they carry that around with them at all times.
And Gordon, we're limited to time, but it's particularly shocking, these salaries, bearing in mind the average police officer trained earns £43,000 a year.
Yeah, that's right. So we know from previous Freedom of Information releases that the total spend on diversity officers in the country is probably at least 10 million a year. And if you imagine how many frontline officers you could afford to hire for that, we're talking big numbers.
Absolutely. Gordon, well done. Great story.
Absolutely.
We have to read out a statement from Police Scotland, and Miriam loves reading them.
Police Scotland is driving a culture change towards becoming an anti-racist, anti-discriminatory policing service which fully reflects and represents all our diverse communities.
And Devon and Cornwall Police said much the same?
Yep, they're committed to ensuring every pound of public money delivers the greatest possible benefit in keeping people safe and reducing crime. The culture and inclusion lead role is a valuable and important position within modern policing.
And the Met Police said much the same.
Yeah, no fear or favour, continuing to strive. Politics is becoming more polarised, policing must be impartial, and operational decisions are grounded in legal principles.
Can we say to those three police officers, of our viewers and listeners, please spend the money on common sense policing and stop this nonsense on diversity training?
Imagine what would happen to the unemployment rate if suddenly all the diversity jobs went, though.
Yeah, well, they probably did those stupid degrees at university that nobody needs in the first place.
They might have done. Right, well, still ahead, we do have the latest on that horrific news from North Belfast, where a man is seriously injured and in hospital after being stabbed repeatedly in the neck last night.
Some people say it was an attempted beheading. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A lot of showers around today, some big beefy ones as well, hail, thunder, lightning, all possible with some sunny spells in between. We're starting with a zone of cloud and showery rain across central and eastern England. That'll work out into the North Sea, then sunshine and then lots of showers already following into Northern Ireland and Scotland. As I mentioned, some pretty intense downpours likely. One of those days where 1 minute you've got a biblical downpour, 15 minutes later the sun is out. And certainly in the south in the afternoon, the emphasis will be a bit more on sunshine and not as many showers, but it's not going to be a warm day, feeling cooler in the breeze and when the downpours come along, of which there'll still be plenty of them around as we go through the evening. Still a few thunderstorms likely to rumble on also, but parts of the south, as I say, seeing some good spells of sunshine to end the day. Plenty of showers for North Wales, Northern Ireland coming and going throughout the day, as they will across much of Northern England and Scotland. Don't be surprised if you get caught out by a hail shower coming in. The wind's a little lighter over northern Scotland, so the showers are a little more slow moving perhaps here. As we go through the evening time, the showers will continue to fade in many central and eastern parts, so some lengthy dry and clear spells here, but we'll always keep some showers feeding in on a fairly brisk westerly wind. So the showers keeping going for much of Wales, northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland. With some clearer skies, we could well dip down into the mid-single figures in rural spots. Most towns and cities start Wednesday about 7 to 9 Celsius. Another day of showers to come tomorrow as well. Again, like today, there'll be some spells of sunshine, certainly to start with over eastern Scotland, but also like today, where the showers do occur, yes, they'll be moving through, but they could turn into thundery downpours with hail and lightning possible too. Maybe turning a bit drier in Wales and southwest England for the afternoon. Still quite blustery and still on the cool side.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A90 at Brecon is restricted both ways due to roadworks. A 30 miles per hour speed limit applies on Britannia Bridge along the A55. Northbound on the A38 in Staffordshire expect 10-minute delays. The M5 northbound in Devon has one lane closed because of a broken down vehicle. In Essex, all lanes are closed on the M11 northbound entry slip at junction 6 from the M25 anti-clockwise due to an overturned vehicle. And on the trains there is disruption on Great Western Railway between Reading and Newbury, and on ScotRail services between Glasgow Queen Street and Edinburgh via Bishopbriggs. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late-night TV shows. We're giving you a front-row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 9th of June. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Cash for criminals. £28 billion of taxpayer money landed in the hands of terrorists, hostile states and organised crime gangs, and the last government covered up the report saying so.
And that was just till 2021. How has the Labour government cracked down on this astonishing waste of money?
And some breaking news this morning. A man is seriously injured and in hospital after being repeatedly stabbed in the neck in North Belfast last night.
Where technology poses a threat to our people, to our children, we will act quickly and firmly.
Well, the White House has reacted swiftly and told the Prime Minister to not ban social media for under-16s to protect US tech giants, or is it to protect their vast profits?
But if you decide to start treating groups differently, then all of a sudden accusations become facts depending on who has made them.
Restoring common sense. This morning, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch sets out her plan to remove identity politics from public life.
University debt trap. Half of graduates are still earning below the average wage 5 years after they got their degree. We're asking, is university now becoming a waste of money?
And birthday bunk-offs. More than half of children are likely to skip school on their birthday as ministers clamp down on just one day off culture. Is it ever okay to skive?
I imagine people were spluttering into their teas and coffees this morning listening to Gordon Rayner from the Telegraph saying £75,000 in Scotland, £62,000 in Cornwall, £45,000 in London. For diversity officers, we don't need them. We don't need them.
It's almost kind of Soviet, isn't it? To create these jobs that don't really do anything in order to give people full employment and then go around and meddle in other people's lives.
But what we know they've probably done is indoctrinate police officers on the front line who then make terrible mistakes, as we saw with the killing of in Southampton.
Yeah, absolutely.
Henry Novak.
And there is a link between these diversity officers and what Kemi Badenoch wants to talk about today, which is scrapping the public sector equalities duty from the Equality Act, which compels public sector organisations to get rid of discrimination, which means to make sure that there is proper representation of people
with protected characteristics.
Exactly.
Where did that phrase come from?
It comes from the Equality Act,
Exactly.
in that public sector equality duty. So if that was got rid of, you wouldn't need these diversity officers
And
anymore.
who created the Equality Act? Harriet Harman, who was just brought back in to advise Keir Starmer the other day on women, and she's a woman who struggled to define a woman.
Well, Reform are saying that what Kemi Baden are proposing isn't nearly enough, that it isn't just the public sector equality duty that's the problem, it's the entirety of the Act, and the whole lot should be scrapped. So we're going to be having that debate coming up.
It's the whole mindset, isn't it? As ever, tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sophia Wensler.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you and good morning. Your headlines at 10. The Israeli military has issued a new evacuation order for the southern Lebanese city of Tyre, a day after Iran called for attacks on Lebanon to stop. Yesterday, Iran and Israel both agreed to pause attacks on each other after exchanging fire for the first time since April's truce. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu said his military is ready to respond with force if Iran attacks again. Meanwhile, Iran's military said it had stopped operations but pledged more severe and crushing measures if Israel carried out more strikes, including Lebanon. But US President Donald Trump claims a deal is still on the cards.
We have ongoing negotiations in Iran and with Iran, and that hasn't stopped. And we could have at least an idea by 1 or 2 days from now, but I think it's going well. The blockade continues to hold 100%.
Nigel Farage has condemned a horrific incident in Belfast after a man was stabbed repeatedly in the neck, leaving him seriously injured in hospital. Police were called to Kinnaird Avenue at around 10:30, where officers arrested another man in connection with the incident. The Reform UK leader has called on authorities to reveal the identity and status of the attacker. In a post on X, he said the public are entitled to the truth. US President Donald Trump has warned the Prime Minister against imposing a social media ban for under-16s, arguing that it could harm freedom of speech. In a statement, the White House claimed the proposed ban is too broad and instead should have narrow focus on sexually explicit imagery and adult commercial content. It comes as the government prepares to announce a ban on social media for under 16-year-olds within days to protect young people from harmful content online. The Trump administration, however, argued that parents should be mainly responsible for regulating their children's social media use. The Conservatives have pledged to remove the requirement for public sector bodies to promote equality following the murder of Henry Novak. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch will today set out plans to scrap rules requiring police officers, nurses and teachers to consider equality issues when they carry out their day-to-day work. The party believes the public sector equality duty has fuelled a box-ticking mindset under which police officers are advised to treat people differently based on ethnicity. The government has said allegations about West Ham co-owner David Sullivan are deeply concerning after he was accused of preying on women for sex. It follows a joint investigation by BBC Panorama and the Times newspaper examining allegations from 7 women starting in the 1980s. The disputed allegations come from women who were in their late teens or early 20s and were young models seeking work at Sullivan's daily and Sunday sport newspapers. He resigned as co-chair of West Ham United on Saturday after 16 years in the role, ahead of the publication of those allegations. He has categorically denied all the claims, describing them as factually incorrect and entirely false, and says he intends to take legal action over the allegations. Apple have released their latest version of Siri, powered by AI. Child safety features for iPhones and iPads will be part of the revamp after the organisation faced criticism for falling behind other tech giants. The new Siri, which will be widely released in the fall, will be more closely resembling AI chatbots like ChatGPT or Google Gemini rather than a question and answer tool that draws from the web. Ben Stokes' position as England Test captain is hanging in the balance after an alleged altercation at a nightclub yesterday in the early hours of the morning. The England and Wales Cricket Board is investigating the England captain and bowler Gus Atkinson for a breach of team protocols following the first test against New Zealand. The Telegraph is reporting that Stokes and Atkinson breached the team's new midnight curfew and became involved in an altercation with another rugby player who is understood to have thrown a punch that hit the security guard supervising the players. Sources say the cricketers were not the aggressors. A top Somali referee will not officiate at the World Cup after being denied entry into the US. Omar Artan, who was set to become the first Somali to officiate a World Cup match, was stopped by US Customs and Border Patrol and deemed inadmissible due to vetting concerns. Somalia is one of several countries on a travel ban list introduced by President Donald Trump's administration. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for the finance.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3382 US and 1.1585 euros. The price of gold is £3,236 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 10,342 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, this is an extraordinary story in the front of the Telegraph today. A secret report has revealed billions. When we say billions, is it 28 billion?
28 billion pounds.
28 billion. That would build many, many hospitals. Of your money has been handed by the state, i.e. the government, to terrorists, hostile states and organised crime.
Well, more than £28 billion apparently found its way to people who want to harm Britain, including Russia and the Islamic State.
And it's all been discovered in a report to the Cabinet Office, which was written in 2023. And guess what? The last shower covered it up. Our political editor, Christopher Hope's with us now in our Westminster studio. Christopher, this is jaw-dropping in the scale of the money that disappeared into the wrong hands, and jaw-dropping that it's managed to stay a secret for 3 years.
Yes, it is astonishing. The last Tory government commissioned a report by the Foreign Office in 2023 to look at it. It examined 2015 to 2021, so before COVID. Forget all the COVID loan drama, the COVID loopholes, the fast track, all that stuff about giving contracts to people who knew people in government. That's all in the future. This is before that, and that's what makes it particularly shocking, I think. 28 billion giving to, they say here in this report from the Centre for Economic Security, terrorists, hostile states, gangsters, some of it through aid money. The budget for the aid budget was between 12.1 billion in 2015 to 15.2 billion in 2019. It went up because, of course, the economy improved, and the aid budget then was 0.7% of gross national income. So as the economy improved, so did aid money. But that money, some of it, was not being protected like it should be. Rebecca Harding, who's the author of the report, says that one of the problems is that we assume as a country that everyone else wants the best, like we do. In fact, this is economic warfare, she says, and we've been naive about the rest of the world and its treatment to us. They found, for example, at the end of this period, some COVID relief loans went to Islamic State, would you believe it, in Syria. Human traffickers, Andrew and Miriam, claiming housing benefits and disability benefits, criminal Eastern European networks benefiting. One of the sources in the report, Tom Keatings, describes the benefit system as being used as an ATM for terrorists. Now, I think what the frustration for so many viewers and listeners at GB News is we look at this spending and there's no jeopardy around it. Yeah. Now, if that was you or me, we would spend our money so carefully. I know, I'm sure. I mean, it's hard getting a drink out of Andrew in the pub. No, I'm joking, but I'm joking. But what I'm trying to say is that it's often very hard. You spend money very closely when it's your money. But why is it that the state turns a blind eye to some of this spending? It seems outrageous, and the scale of it, 28 billion, would do so much good given our straitened times now. And just before I go, The government says that the Cabinet Office, the Labour government says the Cabinet Office has saved 7.5 billion of taxpayers' money in the past year through aggressive fraud prevention and recovery. And of course, this happened under a previous government. But we want to hear, and I'll be asking the government later, what are they doing to make sure they've learned the lessons of this? And why can't officials treat our money like it's theirs?
Absolutely, very good question, Christopher. Thank you for that. And of course, just to point out, 28 billion is almost half the annual defence budget. Yeah, and we've got ships that are in dry docks, submarines that can't move because we've got no money, the defence procurement budget in chaos. It's a scandal. And the fact it was covered up for 3 years is unbelievable.
Extraordinary.
Now,
well, moving on now. In the last few moments, the Prime Minister has tweeted about that attack in Belfast overnight. He said, "The horrific attack in Belfast last night is sickening. I have absolutely no tolerance for the abhorrent scenes of violence like this on our streets. My first thoughts are with the victim, and I thank the first responders, including members of the public who intervened."
Now, and I can predict this is a man who's critically ill in hospital after an attempted beheading in Belfast last night. Now, after the disturbances in Southport, Miriam, you will recall the government made it clear that we are to be told the nationality of the suspect's assailants. There is a suggestion that this might be a migrant in the Belfast incident. And we'll have more on that as we get it, because the pressure will grow for full disclosure.
Yeah, especially with lots of footage, sickening footage circulating online. People can see what's alleged to have happened.
We'll be talking to Doogie BT, our Northern Ireland reporter, shortly. But first, President Trump has told the Prime Minister not to impose a blanket social media ban on the under-16s.
Well, in a statement, the White House claimed that the proposed ban is too broad and instead should have a narrow focus on sexually explicit imagery and adult commercial content.
Joe Hemmings is a behavioural psychologist and joins us now. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We only know where we are so far because the Prime Minister said yesterday he's giving the social media companies 3 months in which to come up with a clear plan to stop children having access to nudity on their phones. We suspect he's going to next week announce a full wholesale ban on under-16s having access to social media. Is that the right way forward?
I'm not convinced it is, actually. I think the social media ban itself firstly sends children underground, sends them to other places. It also lets the social media platforms off the hook, because I think what will happen is if they're not forced to implement moderation, looking at their algorithms, looking at their content. You know, you talked just now about the Belfast attempted beheading. Children can see this online. So what will happen is there'll be a wild west going on these social media platforms for anybody over 16. So that's 17 and 18, 19-year-olds, still impressionable young people. So I don't think the answer is a ban. The answer, as the Molly Rose Foundation would say, is to force these platforms to implement better moderation, different content, ban certain areas of what they are allowing out there for everybody, because otherwise I just feel it's just letting them off the hook and kids will find a way.
But the difficulty is, Joe, that you're then placing the power in the hands of the tech companies to decide what content is harmful or not. And we saw the problem with that during COVID, for example, when YouTube removed a parliamentary debate about vaccine harms. Or most recently, TikTok removed a video that Zia Youssef from Reform UK made about immigration. If we allow the tech companies to decide what's harmful and what isn't, we quickly get into democratic issues. Whereas if we just say children are not allowed on social media, that removes the problem with who gets to decide what content is harmful and what is not.
Well, look, I hear what you're saying. I think, firstly, as I say, children will find a way through somehow. Secondly, there is a way...
Well, they do an alcohol ban, but it's still a good thing.
Well, they do. But there is a way to be very clear over what should be banned. There are child-friendly social media platforms like Kinzoo, like Zigazoo. They manage to get that really... the clarity over what is not acceptable. I'm not talking about freedom of speech. I'm talking about self-harm, suicide ideation, violence, sexual assault, all these things. There should be a very clear roadmap for what is not acceptable. It isn't that difficult to implement, but it doesn't mean that we say, oh, we can't implement it because then there's certain things that, as you say, YouTube put that out or whatever, or stopped it being shown. It's easy to do. We've got to get a grip on forcing those social media platforms to be
Joe,
responsible.
what about, you're a behavioural psychologist, what about the behavioural, the psychological impacts of excessive use of social media, regardless of whether the content is harmful or mediocre, you know, whether you're watching videos of kittens? Over half of young people would rather live in a world where AI didn't exist. Almost half would rather live in a world where the internet didn't exist. 70% of 16 to 21-year-olds feel worse about themselves after spending time on social media. What are the advantages to young children of having social media?
I mean, it's really sad and it's really telling, isn't it? That sort of, those statistics. Look, I think they can be educational. I think they can be informative. They're a way of, these days, of connecting with your friends. You know, I think
can meet
a
your
lot
friends
of it is
face to face, and that's sadly what children are not doing anymore.
To come back. Of course, that's what we want, but at the moment, that's not the reality of it. I 100% agree with you. Let's try and bring that back. But I do think a lot of this is algorithm driven. These kids get sucked into a vortex of hours of staring at their screens, whether it's kittens or anything else. And those algorithms don't have to be that way. They can change them so that they don't not force them, but make them feel obliged, or they don't have the self-control to stop looking through them. So that's another thing that I think needs to be implemented on the platforms as well.
All right, that's Jo Hemmings, behavioural psychologist. Thanks for joining us. I'm touched by her faith in the internet giant. I don't have any faith in them at all.
No, not at all. Especially considering we know that exactly, and we know the software exists. If you think about how quickly you can open an online bank account, or the fact that we are tracked facially throughout airports, and yet they say they can't kick under 16s off social media.
They're making too much money to care, and I'm afraid they don't care about young people being
Only the law
into
can
this
stop
terrible
them.
vortex that Jo Hemmings was talking about.
Yeah. Indeed.
Now, it is time for the Great British Giveaway. It is your chance to win our big cash prize. It's £76,453, and don't forget the 21 pence. Tax-free. Here's how you do it.
We're here at the Imperial Island Resort in Paphos to celebrate the chance to enjoy your most spectacular summer to date. Someone has to win our stunning cash prize of £76,543.21, and that person really could be you. Imagine all of the fun you could have this year with that. You could treat the family, treat your friends, make it a super summer for everyone you know.
Or just enjoy a bit of me time, safe in the knowledge all those day-to-day financial stresses have been taken care of.
£76,543.21 in totally tax-free cash could be yours in time for summer. Just make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 26th of June.
For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still ahead, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is going to pledge to restore common sense and boot out identity politics from public life this morning.
And we're also going to be talking about, should the England captain, Ben Stokes, the England cricket team, be banned from being captain because he apparently got involved in a boozy brawl in a nightclub. Isn't that what sportsmen do? We're going to be talking to Piers Pottinger and Kevin Maguire, always voices of common sense.
Hopefully not involved in a brawl.
Yeah, they won't.
Not at the moment, anyway.
It was once on Kevin Maguire's Wikipedia that he was that I was arrested for attacking him on the TV studio.
There's always time, Andrew, there's always time.
Wasn't true, of course. This is Britain's Newsroom.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because
because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, Parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. 5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, a man is seriously injured in hospital after being stabbed repeatedly in the neck in North Belfast late last night.
Police were called at around 10:30, where officers arrested another man in connection with the incident. Sir Keir Starmer's intervened, saying, "I've no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on our streets."
Well, let's speak to GB News' Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. Doogie, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Some horrific speculation about this attack, some people calling it an attempted beheading.
Well, I was probably the only mainstream media crew on the ground here last night. I arrived at just about 11 o'clock. That attack took place at 10:25, and I can tell you the scenes here were chaotic at that stage. What the ambulance service had to deal with at that point must have been quite disturbing. I'm sure that most of us have watched those videos and realised exactly what is happening and what was going on. Those videos very much mirrored what was going on here when I arrived, and Nigel Farage has tweeted out probably the most sensible thing, that really the police need to come forward now and say exactly what happened here, because this area of Belfast is very socially deprived. It's seen the worst of the troubles here. I mean, this is a Republican area, and just about 500 or 600 yards away here is Gertrude Barracks and the Shankle Road. And last night you could feel the anger in the community over the amount of immigration that has come into this area and put real stress and pressures on facilities that are here. Now, for the Shankle Road people to come here last night and offer their support was quite amazing to see. But it shows you the frustration that is currently in Belfast. Now, this man is in a coma. fighting for his life, quite literally, and the other one has been arrested. Pressure now on the PSNI to come out with those statements of what went on, and local politicians here are appealing for calm until they can try and really discover who was involved and what happened. But the communities here are quite angry because they believe this video to be true, and you can see in it exactly what went on. The bravery of the man with the hurley bat that comes in from the left-hand side is quite astonishing. He ran to his own house, got a hurley bat, and came in and struck the attacker twice at that stage. So it really is quite bizarre that everything was caught on video, and that social media video is going to cause a lot of problems in Northern Ireland over the next couple of days.
Doogie, we're just hearing from the police now. They are saying that the alleged attacker is believed to be Somalian and in his 30s, and the alleged victim has significant injuries to his face, neck and back. That's what the PSNI have just released, which confirms people's worst fears.
Well, it does, and that is a real problem for the politicians here in Northern Ireland, because political parties such as Sinn Féin and the SDLP have all been about immigration. In fact, we're seeing the borders being put into the control of the EU in the Republic of Ireland on the 12th of June. So they will say how many immigrants come in to the Republic of Ireland. And of course, under that protocol deal, there is no borders in Northern Ireland. And what happens is many of those immigrants come straight across the border into this part of the UK, and then it's bad enough that you don't know their identity in the Republic of Ireland, but when they come into the UK over that borderless border and into Belfast, companies really house them in social working areas. And we have seen that last year in Ballymena and how that erupted into 5 nights of violence. The communities here are used to violence, and unfortunately politicians need to take the lead here very, very quickly.
You beat it in Northern Ireland. We've got our panel with us, Piers Pottinger and Kevin McGuire. We can still talk about this because nobody's been charged. Now, this confirming he's a migrant, Piers, is a direct result of what happened in Southport when, as you know, there was riots because there were incorrect reports that the killer of those 3 little girls had come across the channel in a boat, Axel Rudakabanu. So the police have been quick this time in because it happened only last night.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very sad. I mean, I'm afraid these kind of incidents, I mean, this isn't the first sort of incident of its kind in Belfast recently this year. And I fear it's a real problem, particularly there. And there may be similar problems, more of this happening here. I'm afraid we live in a very dangerous time when it comes to the whole question of immigration and people's attitudes. It's not helped, I may say, by some of the extreme views that are promulgated by the extreme right.
Okay.
And it really doesn't help.
OK, we're going to move on. Kevin, on the front page of the Telegraph, it's quite jaw-dropping, this story. £28 billion of public money handed to groups that want to destroy this country. Public money. What's extraordinary? The last Government Commission report in 2023, and then covered it up.
Yeah,
and it's only just come out.
Well, we need to see the report. It doesn't read as if the Telegraph have the full report, because there's very few details of where the money got. It's all a bit broad. So I'd like the full report to be published. If it's been commissioned,
well, they do say that quite a lot is having to be redacted because it would reveal a lot of intelligence sources.
Yeah, but you can put the names of the countries in. You can put some of the groups. Look, this is fraud. If indeed it is on this scale, and that report should have been published. And if it's around
Islamic State.
Yeah, if indeed that is the case, let's see the report.
It would appear that this money goes across various departments. And I think it's actually not so much a political problem as a civil service problem. And it's people in these departments who are perhaps not being as efficient as they should be, or being easily hoodwinked by very clever people who spot a pot of money ready for the taking. And don't forget, it wasn't just overseas criminals who profited from COVID in this country.
I think that's a really key point, Piers, because in the Telegraph article they quote a chap called Tom Keating of the RUSI think tank, and he says, "We have a history in the UK, probably so more than anywhere else in Europe, of government and industry respecting each other's boundaries." In other words, British culture is very much honourable, about business, government, individuals, generally not being corrupt and not ripping other people off. But now other countries, other cultures are taking advantage of that sense of British honour.
I mean,
we are one of the least corrupt countries in the world. We have been historically.
I am wary of patting ourselves on the back and polishing our halos.
It's absolutely true.
Particularly if the last government has lost £28 billion,
which is nearly half the defence.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That British system of trust is being exploited.
I suspect it's been going on for some time. If it's been happening, we've got to have systems that make sure this doesn't.
But why aren't
happen.
we shocked, Kevin, that £28 billion?
I am. I'm just
disappeared in fraud even before COVID.
Shocked. I'm outraged.
And it's gone to really dodgy people. And there should be. Why aren't Labour MPs clamouring over the airwaves about this?
One of the problems is there's nothing to compare this figure with. So this may have been going on, and to some degree has been going on forever. What we don't know is whether this is particularly bad or something we should expect to continue in the future. And the problem is with the way technology moves, people have to be very exceptionally careful about every aspect of handing out any kind of money.
40% of crime now in England and Wales, 2 in every 5 crimes. It's fraud, and it's not just in the private sector and people being scammed online or people knocking on their door, whatever. Governments suffer it too, but you've got to stop the government suffering it too if it's 28 billion and it's going to particularly bad people.
But the problem is, if you move away from this high trust society, which we have traditionally enjoyed in this country, you introduce friction, because the more checks and balances you have to have, the more proofs you have to have, the more safeguarding, money laundering, all those kind of things, it slows things down, it reduces trust and it reduces productivity. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, but that's true.
I have to say that from my own personal experience and knowledge, that when it comes to security and technology, banks are way behind where they should be. And, of course, any money transferred by any government has to go through a bank. And if bank systems may well be at fault here as well, because if the sender knows they're sending it to a criminal organisation, they won't send it. But if it's disguised, and which is what this will have been to some degree, then they won't send it.
We've got to stop you there, Piers, because we're going to cross lines with Conservative Kemi Badenoch, who is speaking in Westminster.
It was one of the hardest things I have ever watched.
Well done, boys.
Because I knew what was going to happen. As I was watching it, I found myself willing the police to stop, willing them to think, to at least consider Henry's story and check if he had been stabbed. A lot of people have given all sorts of opinions. Some have blamed social media, others have blamed knives, racism, or the police. Some have tried to score political points, others have tried to avoid seeing what was there for all of us to see. There's been recrimination and finger-pointing, and believe me, there are many I'd like to point my finger at, but the job of a politician is not to tell people to be angry or to make people angry. It is to offer solutions. Henry's family could not have been clearer that they don't want his murder to be used as a weapon to divide. I met them last week. They are brave but broken-hearted. None of us would want to be in their shoes. What they want is for something good to come out of the outpouring of public shock and grief. They want the police to become an institution that we can trust again. And if we want to honour that wish, to honour Henry's memory, we need to ask the right question. I believe that question is, why did the police take an accusation of racism more seriously than the claim that Henry had been stabbed? This question goes beyond policing. Why are public bodies so unable to act with common sense when race or identity is involved? Why are they so distracted, busying themselves with things that have nothing to do with their core function? In March, I gave a speech explaining that the Conservative Party will remove identity politics from all public bodies. The speech I'm giving today is the result of work we have been doing over many months. Some of what I'm going to say is going to be very uncomfortable. But our job as legislators is to ask uncomfortable questions so we can do the right thing for the country. And the right thing for the country is to make sure the circumstances around Henry's tragic death never happen again. It is easy to blame the police officers who responded to that 999 call for what happened. The person most to blame was Henry's murderer. But the lack of common sense and the lack of compassion shown by the police was shocking. Something clearly went very wrong, and that is why I have asked the Prime Minister for a rapid and independent review. In some ways, I feel for those police officers because they were following guidance they have been trained on, guidance which does not apply equality under the law, guidance which says hate crimes should be treated as a priority. Many people don't know what is in this guidance, and that is why it needs to be exposed. This country was built on a belief in equality under the law. Magna Carta, the abolition of slavery, universal suffrage. Over centuries, we have enshrined in our law our belief that everybody in this country is equal. There is a reason Lady Justice is blindfolded. The idea that each person should be treated the same, regardless of who they are, is a value so deeply ingrained in our culture that most people in Britain accept it as a self-evident truth. But while we have been going about our business, activists have been taking Lady Justice's blindfold off. They want the law to treat people differently on the basis of identity groups, eroding a centuries-old principle that has made Britain the amazing country that it is today. Equality law, properly designed, should protect us all in the same way. It should be a shield, not a sword. It should protect people from discrimination. It should protect people from being treated differently because of their race, sex, religion, sexuality, disability, or age. This understanding and this principle are being perverted. Treating people equally and fairly will not deliver equality of outcome because sometimes a difference in outcome is fair. Modern Britain is the least racist country on earth. I speak from experience. As a child, I lived on 3 different continents. I have seen what life is like for ethnic minorities in other places. There is nowhere else on earth I'd rather be. There is nowhere else on earth that I would be doing the job that I'm doing right now as a black woman in a majority white country. It is because we are not racist, because we care so much about equality, that we have overcorrected and actually brought in rules that are actually discriminatory. How did this happen? When we saw high-profile incidents of injustice, like the murder of Stephen Lawrence, there was rightly public pressure to ensure an injustice like that never happened again. Stephen Lawrence's murder resulted in the influential Macpherson report, a report that wanted to put right what went wrong with policing in the 1990s. However, in attempting to do so, it also enshrined a principle which I believe is wrong, that a racist incident is racist if it is perceived as racist by the victim or any other person. This may have made sense in a different context long ago, but today, when we look at the response to Henry Novak's murder and the police's acceptance that the murderer was correct when he accused Henry of racism, it is clear that mere accusations are being accepted as facts. The Macpherson report led in 2001 to the race equality duty, which then morphed in the Equality Act to the public sector equality duty, which is what I'm talking about today, covering everything from race to sex to sexuality and much more. What do the Nottingham murders, the Southport attack, the Manchester Arena bombings, and the rape gangs all have in common? All these crimes could have been stopped if people had intervened instead of a fear of being, instead of having a fear of being called racist. We would not have had so many girls abused by rape gangs if local authorities had not looked away because they were too scared to point out the obvious. That's why those unspeakable crimes went on for years. One parent told me that when she gave the description of her daughter's abuser, the police accused her of being racist. If the security guards at the Manchester Arena weren't afraid of being accused of racial profiling, we wouldn't have seen a bomber walk into the venue unchecked. If authorities weren't concerned that black people were overrepresented in mental health units, 3 people would not have been murdered in Nottingham by a man who should have been detained under the Mental Health Act. And if authorities hadn't chalked up Axel Rudakabana's violent behaviour to autism, if his head teacher hadn't been accused of racial stereotyping when she raised concerns about him bringing a knife into school, 3 little girls might still be with us. Their families are all living a life sentence to make race the cause of the crime. Race is not the cause of those crimes, but it is the reason these crimes are not being prevented. If public services were prioritizing their duty to citizens, the last words that Henry Novak ever heard would not have been a police officer reading him his rights. Each of these tragedies is different, but they expose a common weakness. Authorities conditioned to see minority status as victimhood. They withhold information, they avoid difficult conversations, and they allow reputational concerns to dominate their decision-making. They have spent so long worrying about institutional racism that they have become institutionally incompetent. They are systematically failing to fulfill their role to do what they are there to do. In the case of the police, catch and stop criminals. Section people whose mental health demands it. Investigate suspicious behavior. Confidence in our institutions is now collapsing. And how could it not? When people can see, as we do in my own constituency, Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities breaking laws that no one else would get away with. When rapists are being put in women's prisons because the justice system prioritizes the protected characteristic of gender reassignment over women's privacy, dignity, and safety. When people see pro-Palestinian marchers chanting slogans that others would be sent to jail for tweeting. People will believe in two-tier policing when they see this. Common sense has gone out of the window, and people are left wondering which rules apply to whom. You can see how we got here. Each time a high-profile case involving race happened, like the shooting of Mark Duggan that sparked the 2011 London riots, or in 2022, the shooting of Chris Cabba, a man under suspicion of a double murder, police officers, like Martin Blake, were dragged through long and degrading public inquiries. These institutions stopped worrying about getting the law wrong and worried desperately about a career-ending accusation of racism. The safest path for them to avoid this accusation was not common sense or the facts in front of them. It was to follow the process, so people replaced thinking with box ticking. They outsourced decision-making to activists and left-wing pressure groups. I'll give you an example. The head of the supposedly independent Scrutiny and Oversight Board, a board which audits the police race action plans, the head of this tweeted about defunding the police. She was asked about her comments on the Today programme yesterday and defended her views. Some of these people don't believe we should have a police service at all. So I want to be clear. The Conservative Party is the party of law and order. We are the party of law and order. We want to fund, not defund the police. And the reason why we want to triple stop and search and hire 10,000 more police officers is because we believe that this will lead to safer streets. I'm afraid it doesn't matter if more black boys are searched because it will mean more black lives are saved. The police's own guidance now explicitly says that people should be treated differently because of protected characteristics. Equality under the law, this guiding principle on which our great nation was built, is being thrown away. Some will ask, why didn't you do anything in government? I did, and I paid a price for it. I challenged the idea that every disparity is racism. I stopped terrible guidance and legislation asking us to treat COVID as a racist disease. I backed work showing that white working class boys were among the most disadvantaged children in Britain, if not the most disadvantaged. That did not fit the institutional racism story, so I was attacked for it. But I didn't back down, because if the facts embarrass your ideology, the problem is your ideology, not the facts. Yeah. I remember being called all sorts of names. I was called a coconut and Uncle Tom, the black face of white supremacy, not just by activists and silly academics, but even by Labour MPs, people who should have known better. And that is why today I am not bothered by Reform MPs promoting fake adverts, quoting me out of context. Nobody believes their lies, not even Nigel Farage, who praised me for my stance at the time. I met police chiefs, the Met, police and crime commissioners, and the College of Policing. I told them plainly, race action plans born out of Black Lives Matter would create the very mistrust they wanted to solve. I warned at the time that there would be a backlash. I published the evidence, I issued guidance, I wrote to public bodies again and again, telling them the same thing. Equality means treating people as individuals, not sorting them into groups. I did everything within my power, but the Equalities Minister can only warn. She has no power to command every police force, NHS trust, school or council in the country. Some listened, others simply stalled, waiting for someone else, perhaps a Labour government or another minister, who would indulge this ideology. The police pointed to the Macpherson report when I spoke to them, and they told me that I was wrong, that disparities in outcomes proved they must be institutionally racist. This was the police telling me that. But I didn't back down then, and I'm not going to back down now. I have spent my political career fighting against identity politics on the left when it came from Labour, Lib Dems, the SNP, and I will do exactly the same against identity politics when it comes from Reform UK. The answer to Black Lives Matter is not a White Lives Matter born of the same racial grievance. We will not defeat identity politics by building a mirror image of it. There is a silent majority across our country who want order, fairness, common sense, and one law for everyone. Everyone matters. These are the people the Conservative Party stands for, and that is the country we can be again. And this isn't about replacing one bureaucracy with another. I hate bureaucracy. The Conservative Party's answer to this problem rests on three principles that distinguish us from every other party. The first is universalism. That means every citizen must be treated as an individual, not as part of a group. The second is that differences in outcome are not proof of discrimination. Just because men and women or the young and old have differences doesn't mean these are problems of ageism or sexism. We need to examine the facts and the evidence before ideology. If you diagnose everything as racism or sexism or ageism, you won't solve the underlying issue. The third principle is that we rebuild trust in failing institutions, not undermine them. We must find the root cause of failure and tackle it rather than destroying trust for political or other gain. Conservatives believe in our institutions. Institutions are not perfect, but we want to fix a broken system, not smash it to pieces because we are angry. And don't get me wrong, we are angry. I am angry. But rage is not a strategy. Rage is not a solution. In March, I gave a speech about separatism and how we need to remove identity politics from public life. I asked the respected barrister Andrew Dinsmore to advise me on how we do this and how we bring back the principle of meritocracy and equality under the law. This is the solution. There are so many problems to fix. Many of them are currently being caused by the public sector equality duty in the Equality Act. This duty is subjective, with no clear rules, and whatever its intention, in practice, it has become a minefield that exposes almost every significant public decision to legal challenge. It is astonishing that late last year, the government lost a case in the High Court against a group of dangerous prisoners. These were prisoners convicted of Islamic terrorism. They were separated from other prisoners to stop them spreading their ideology. But a court found that prison officers had breached their duty because this separation was disproportionately affecting Muslims. This is crazy. These terrorists could now be eligible for compensation. This is madness. This duty is compromising security decisions like isolating dangerous criminals in case the terrorists call us racist. Far from equal outcomes, this duty is leading to ludicrous outcomes. Like Norfolk Police telling a job applicant that because of her gender-critical views, i.e. biological sex is real, that she would not be suitable. The public sector equality duty has turned equality into a zero-sum game, where some groups are preferred over others. And the more public bodies chase equality of outcome, the further they move from equal treatment and equality under the law. That's why I can announce today that a Conservative government will repeal the public sector equality duty in its entirety. We do not need to replace the duty. We need to explain to people that they should do their jobs. I was elected leader of the Conservative Party because I promised to unravel the Blairite legal settlement. There are many laws which were brought in with good intentions, but are delivering perverse outcomes and unintended consequences. We are making policy changes now carefully and thoughtfully, as proved by the serious piece of work that has been done by Andrew Dinsmore. I don't want this to be a party political issue. I would very much like this to be a cross-party issue. This is not a left or right-wing problem. It is a common sense problem. But currently, we are the only party that recognizes what the issue is. Labour are not yet sure anything is wrong, and Reform, who are talking about White Lives Matter, announced that they would abolish the entire Equality Act. So let me be clear. That would mean that it would be legal to discriminate against white people. Is that really what they want? They're not doing their homework. What Reform don't understand is that anti-discrimination legislation protects us all, because it is race and sex that are protected, not being black or white, male or female. The Equality Act protects a white man as much as a black woman, but the public sector equality duty does not. That's why we are going to overhaul the Act, starting by removing this duty. This is not just a technical change to the law. This is part of our plan to remove identity politics entirely from the public sector. Hopefully, the private sector will follow suit because they have this problem too, but government should get its own house in order first. So let me conclude with a story from when I was local government minister back in 2021. Some councils spend up to 70% of their funding on social care, a burden which was crushing many of them. I wanted to allocate more money to councils who had greater social care responsibilities. But my officials told me that because of the public sector equality duty, we would be sued, because the policy would disproportionately benefit white, elderly Christian people. I told them that I was happy to be sued, because any ounce of common sense would tell you that the majority of people in Britain needing social care are white, elderly Christian people. This isn't just about our public institutions. It is about our culture and who we are as a country. For years, people have been encouraged to see themselves as part of an identity group rather than one culture and one nation. Britain must reject tribal politics from both left and right. The Conservatives are not choosing one identity group over another. We are saying government must look after everybody. And we must fix this for the sake of our children. Otherwise, we will leave them a more dangerous and more divided world. It is not fair on black or white children to grow up unable to trust the police. If we want Henry Novak's tragic death to have a positive legacy, it must be a country brought together rather than one pulled apart, and for trust in our police and public services to be rebuilt. That will only happen when we take ideology out of these institutions, restore equal treatment, and give good public servants the confidence to use common sense. Britain must be brought back to the principle that protects us all. Equality under the law, one rulebook, one standard, and only one public duty: to serve the country equally. Thank you. Thank you. And next, thank you. Next, I'm going to take some questions from the media, and then I will take questions. I'll sit down for an conversation with Anna.
Agreed.
Yes.
I've got some questions for you first, I think.
Oh, you want to ask me questions
Yes,
first?
please.
Well, if the media will be very patient, because I know that you have lots of things that you want to ask me, but we will start with Hannah's questions, and then I will come back here and do the questions with the media.
Great. Thank you. And I want to start by associating the Institute with the remarks you made about the Henry Novak case and the importance of respecting the wishes of his family at this very difficult time for them. I would ask you about the difference this change will make for people. 1 in 10 people waited more than 12 hours for care in A&E last year. The median wait for elective care is more than double what it was in 2010 when the Conservatives came to power. The average time it takes for the police to charge an offence has tripled from 2 to 6 weeks in the last 10 years. So how will scrapping the public sector equality duty help improve those problems?
It will stop public officials from wasting their time on a lot of things that have nothing to do with delivering frontline services. That's how.
But I think you would accept, would you not, that the amount of time and money spent on EDI initiatives is in relative terms very small. For example, total police spending in 25-26 was just under £21 billion, and so you would be only freeing up less than 0.5% of that budget by stopping spending the money.
So it's quite important that we don't allow this to be just paperwork. The second, third, fourth order consequences of the way that people are carrying out their jobs is wasting a lot of time and money. We've estimated that it's about £420 million. But that's just on the public activity. How much has that?
So we'll go back to that press conference when the Tory leader starts taking questions from the media. Piers Pottinger, she's grown and grown in terms of delivering public speeches. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was terrific. I thought she's got a great confidence now. She's very confident about her subject. And on this particular issue, she can talk in a way that others can't.
Because of her skin colour?
Yeah. And so she's able to say some brave things. And I think it adds to the impact. I hope it will have impact beyond our audience and throughout the country. But the thing is, she's doing very well in the House of Commons. She seems to have grown in stature. But it doesn't seem to be showing through in the polls.
No, they're terrible.
And they're still almost non-existent. I mean, the funfair rider and his lot are doing better than the Conservatives by some long way. And I don't know what it's going to take for her to rekindle proper Conservative support, because I think it's still the case that voters have long memories.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt that part of the mess this country's in is down to the Conservatives.
Sure.
And I don't think she's yet broken the mould from the past.
Well, just to recap, so this is in response to, of course, the horrific murder of Henry Novak and the public feeling that the police are prioritising racism or anti-racism over more serious crimes. And so she's committed, if she comes into government, which Piers is obviously very sceptical about, to repeal the public sector equality duty, which is part of the Equality Act, which compels public bodies to eliminate discrimination, which sounds good, Kevin, but in practice has meant all kinds of diversity policies that push certain minorities ahead of others and have created all sorts of problems.
I think it's the problems and extent of it are massively overplayed, I believe, as reform councils are now discovering there aren't lots of.
They're overplayed in economic terms, certainly, but not in culture.
There aren't lots of.
You try being a white 17-year-old boy.
You're still less likely to be stopped by the police than a black 17-year-old.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that it's illegal to discriminate against you when applying for a job.
All discrimination is wrong, and I think it's still right to tackle that. Whatever the basis you're discriminated against, we need a fairer society, and we don't have it. So I think you can keep that goal, don't lose it. But I think what she was doing there is she was differentiating herself, not from Liberal Democrats or Labour or Greens. She's differentiating herself from Nigel Farage and Reform and Restore. That's what she's doing, and she's walking. It's a difficult path, but I think she's trying to walk it very carefully. And I was impressed with her response to Henry Novak, because that shocking footage. The fact is, the police have had a 999 call, 2 guys claiming they've been attacked, and that's how they turn up.
Okay, stay with us. We're going to go back to the press conference.
So there is a lot that I've seen and a lot that needs to change. But now I'm happy to take questions from the media. Cardin from ITV.
Thank you very much. I suppose people who support some of these measures would argue that in order to treat people equally, you have to be able to take account of their differences. And that means not treating them in exactly the same way, because you have to take account of disabilities, levels of understanding, and perhaps in some cases the degree to which they have trust in the public authorities that are dealing with them. Aren't you removing the requirement to take account of people's differences?
No, not at all. In fact, we're making it easier and better, because what we're bringing back is common sense. The public sector equality duty has put rapists in women's prisons. That is not common sense. You don't need a duty to tell you to take account of differences. Quite often, differences are obvious. We don't need the protected characteristic of age and the public sector equality duty to tell us not to treat children in the same way that we treat adults. What is happening is that people have stopped thinking and are just trying to follow the process so they don't get into trouble. I want people to bring their judgment back. If you don't have good judgment, you shouldn't be in the job. If you need a box to tell you not to put a rapist in a woman's prison, or actually the box is telling you to do that, then something has gone horribly wrong. So what I am bringing back is common sense. Next question, Ali Fortescue from Sky News.
Hiya. Ali Fortescue from Sky News. Can I just be really clear on the point of principle here? Do you accept the principle that some people do need to be treated differently, some people from different groups need to be treated differently for there to be fairness? Can I just get a yes or no on that? And can I also ask, you're someone who previously talked about becoming working class after working at McDonald's. You just then said that we need to treat people as individuals, not part of a group. How far do you take that? Does that include language and labels around class?
Right, okay. So the first question is, do I believe that people need to be treated differently in certain circumstances? Yes, but the principle remains the same, that equality under the law. One of the things that I try to explain is that we are not creating a hierarchy of groups. A black man and a white woman are equally cared for by the Equality Act. It's the public sector duty that asks people to start making various adjustments. Common sense can fix this. Of course, there are incidents of racism, but you don't need to ask the police to accept as a fact anyone saying this is racist, irrespective of what is in front of them, irrespective of the circumstances, because you wouldn't do that if it was if the individuals were different. That's what I'm saying. Let's bring equal treatment back. Of course, if someone has cancer, we're not going to treat them in a hospital like someone who doesn't have cancer. But you don't need the Equality Act to tell you these things. This is what I'm saying, that we have retreated into such a place that we don't even have the confidence to apply things that are obvious. And on the point of labels, as it stands, the Act does not have class as a protected characteristic, but I actually published a report, as I said in the speech, that talked about how white working class boys were disadvantaged. You don't need laws to tell you to think about these things. You should just know. We should just know. Alex Forsyth from the BBC.
Thank you very much. You just said you don't need to think about this stuff, you should just know. What would you say to the people that are listening to you today and think, if you don't put this duty on public bodies to actively think about it, what you might be doing is damaging the cause of people who have faced discrimination for decades? And can I ask, when you were in government, did you suggest this should be scrapped?
So I would say to those people that the Equality Act protects your rights, but we need to make sure that we do not create a society where people retreat into groups. We are seeing separatism in our country occur because different people are being treated differently. And when you have that, there will be a backlash. I made this comment to people who were promoting the Black Lives Matter movement, that if you keep saying this, you're going to get other people who say, well, I want to talk about white lives. And now we have both. That hasn't brought anybody together. So I'm not saying that there is a perfect solution. I am saying that this is the best way for us to remove discrimination from the law while still protecting equality under the law. And that is something that I will continue to fight for. No, I did not ask to remove the PSED. I kept trying to explain to people how to make sure they complied with the law in the Equality Act. And after writing thousands of letters, I've decided that people just need to have this public sector equality duty removed, because when I tried to get them to think more carefully and sensibly about it, they ignored it. So now we're just going to get rid of it, and that should fix the problem. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Thank you. So much focus rightly on the appalling death of Henry Novak, but the Nottingham inquiry concluded yesterday with the message that they had been failed at all levels. But we do know that one of the psychiatrists had resisted sectioning Caine because she was worried about the overrepresentation of black men with schizophrenia in institutions. What's your message to people who feel queasy about what you are suggesting, given some of those facts? And also, if I may, what is your response to the horrific attempted murder yesterday in Belfast, the police saying that a Somalian man in his 30s now under arrest for attempted murder? Thank you.
Thank you. So on the Nottingham murders, what I would say is that this is exactly the sort of situation that we're trying to prevent. If you have mental health issues and you need to be sectioned and you need to be detained, you should be sectioned, you should be detained. No one should be counting how many other black people have been sectioned or detained and say, well, this is too much, so we'll let you go. That is a complete absence of common sense. And we need to bring the common sense back. This is what I am pushing for. We know that there will be some cases where people are discriminated against. There are powers in the Equality Act to deal with that, whether you're white or black. Let's use those, but not this duty that basically tells people to ignore things that need to be dealt with. On Belfast, I've seen some grainy images. Again, I'm absolutely horrified. It is a horrific incident. I haven't heard anything about who the attacker might have been, but I think a lot of people will start wondering yet again, is this someone who should not have been in our country? Have there been failings around our borders? I would urge the police to bring the facts out as quickly as possible so that we can get some clarity, but it is yet another reminder that we do need stronger borders. This is why it is Conservative policy to leave the Convention on Human Rights. That's why we have a borders bill. It's been 2 years. The Prime Minister has not smashed any gangs or stopped any boats. This is a problem. I don't know if that person was someone who came in via that route, but today I'm talking about rebuilding trust with the public. and their trust in public institutions. One of the ways that we are failing the public is by making them think that we have not got a grip on crime, on borders, on managing dangerous and difficult people in our society. And we need to show them that we get it and that we can solve these things quickly so that lives are saved and crimes are prevented.
An answer there from Kevin Badenoch. We're going to move on now because, just to update you, a man is seriously injured after being stabbed repeatedly in the neck in North Belfast last night. Bystanders, witnesses said it appeared to be an attempted beheading.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, says, I have absolutely no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on our streets.
And we now know the police have confirmed that the man they're talking to who's been arrested is a Somalian. Let's speak to GB News Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, they've confirmed now they're talking to a Somalian. What's the reaction there in where you are?
Well, one of horror, to be honest. I was one of the only crews in here last night at 11 o'clock, and it was mayhem. You can imagine what the paramedics faced when they arrived here, what the police service faced when they arrived here. In fact, the police were very, very quick on the scene here, and were actually, after one of the locals stepped in very bravely with a hurley bat to try and stop what was going on. The police were there within minutes and had actually made an arrest. But this is quite horrifying for the local community here. There have been a lot of tensions in this whole area, right across from the Shankle Road, Cliftonville Avenue, right into the Antrim Road, which is just to my left here where this attack took place. These flats behind us are mainly filled with people of immigration, and this comes down to how people are put into deprived or socially deprived areas or working class areas. Most of the social housing is being bought up by companies here and then put into a group called Mears, and they then put those immigrants in. The big questions that's being asked now here is, how did this immigrant get into this country? Did he come through the Republic of Ireland, of course, where there is major problems over immigration? And of course, on the 12th of June, the EU will take control of those Irish borders. They will tell Ireland how many immigrants they are going to take. Now, the big question is, what will happen here in the coming hours? And unless the police act very quickly, now we noticed in their statement, Andrew, that they have said that they have been talking to community leaders on the ground. That is because the fear of violence will come here. And it will cause real problems for the police service of Northern Ireland, especially after last Saturday, a protest on Gaza in Scarva. This is really starting to boil in Northern Ireland, and we've seen it here last year over in Ballymena.
OK, Doogie, that's Doogie Beattie in Northern Ireland, and he'll be with us throughout the day, keeping us up to date on that breaking story. Just to confirm, the police have confirmed the man they're interviewing in connection with the attempted beheading is Somalian.
Well, let's cross now to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Chris, good morning. How have politicians responded overnight to this attack?
Yes, political action is coming in. We just heard Kevin Badenoch speaking to our colleague Catherine Forster at that event she's at. Now, she asked the question, is this person linked to a failure of our borders? We don't know how this person, the Somali man who did the attack in Belfast at 10:30 p.m. last night, we don't know how he got in the country. Has he been here for a while? Did he arrive here illegally? These are questions raised by Kevin Badenoch, the Conservative leader, in the past few moments. But she says there's concern from lots of people about people who should not be in this country. Is that the same person? She is absolutely horrified, of course, by the attack. Also in the past half an hour, Emma Little-Pengelly, she's the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland. She calls the attack shocking and barbaric in a statement to the Northern Ireland Assembly. An assault on our values that bind us together. This violence has no place in Northern Ireland, she says. Earlier we heard from Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, on Twitter, on X. He called it sickening, this horrific attack. He says he has absolutely no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on our streets. His first thoughts, and first and foremost, are with the victims, and he thanks the first responders, including members of the public, who intervened, and as Doogie says, one of them stepped in with a hurling bat. Nigel Farage, he has said also on social media that what happened in Belfast last night is horrific. He makes this point: the authorities must reveal the identity and status of the attacker immediately. The public are entitled to know the truth. And that thought was echoed more forcefully, I think, by Kemi Badenoch. So the political reaction is coming in. We're waiting to see what further information we get from the government and indeed authorities in Northern Ireland. Will we hear about this individual's immigration status or not? But deeply, deeply shocking. And as Dougie says, it's of course part of the UK which has experienced its share of violence over the past decades. But this appears to have shocked the community there to the core.
Crystal, we're just hearing there's going to be an urgent statement in the Commons today. The Northern Ireland Secretary is being required to attend, and it says he's being asked to make a statement on reports of a serious violent attack involving a foreign national and the implications for public safety, immigration enforcement and community cohesion. So this is
Andrew,
ramping up now to a major political story.
Andrew, are you reading there from the House of Commons? If they're saying foreign national, that says something about the nation, the nationality of this individual. We know he's Somali born. If they're saying foreign national, then that puts further pressure on the government to set out who this was, how they came here.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Christopher. And we'll keep you up to date. Of course, we will bring you that statement when it happens later this afternoon. The Speaker has agreed to an emergency statement about this attempted beheading in Northern Ireland last night, and it's described as a serious violent attack involving a foreign national and the implications for public safety, immigration, It's going to turn into a major political story.
Especially as the footage is circulating online. Many people, not just in Northern Ireland, will have seen that and be absolutely appalled by that crime.
Now, in other news.
Half of graduates are earning less than the national median wage 5 years after leaving university.
This report shows more than 150,000 graduates a year struggle to even reach the average full-time worker salary of £35,000. So we're asking a very straightforward question. Is university now turning into a big waste of money for the taxpayer and for a lot of these graduates?
Well, let's speak now to the Head of Education at Policy Exchange and one of the authors of the report, Ian Mansfield. Ian, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Britain's Newsroom. A really interesting report that you've published. A lot of people are already very concerned that graduates aren't getting value for money, but this really does put it in black and white. What was one of the most shocking findings that you discovered when writing this?
Yeah, so I think it's where to start, really. But I think what we've seen is that sort of standards and the graduate premium have plummeted across the board almost. So one of the big ones for me was that in almost half of subjects, a quarter of graduates are earning not just below the median wage, but actually below the national living wage 5 years after graduation. They can't get in a job which gets them even minimum wage here. Then you have the stat that half are earning below the national median wage. Only 57% of graduates are in full-time employment a year and a half after graduation. Wow. And then at the same time as standards for entry have dropped. So 1 in 10 new students at university don't have A-level or equivalent qualifications. We're seeing the number of firsts go through the roof. So in the last 18 years, it's gone from 13% of graduates getting firsts to 30%, which is just frankly astonishing, and it shows a sector that's just completely lost control of any kind of standards or quality.
Did ministers not notice this was happening and not have a word with the exam boards, or were they responding to some unseen political pressure to make it easier to get a first?
So I think when you say exam boards, I think a lot of people think the university sector is more regulated than it is. And unlike in schools where we have national exam boards, in universities, every university sets its own curriculum, exams, and marks its own homework, essentially. It was set up in an era. There are advantages in some of our top universities having that sort of autonomy, your Oxfords and Imperials, which let them compete on the world stage, Cambridge, LSE as well, perhaps. But when it comes to the wider sector, we now have nearly 150 universities, about 300 other higher education providers, which include a lot of sort of low-cost, pack-them-high business studies providers. We essentially have universities, they can admit whoever they like, they set their own curriculum, they set their own exams, they mark their own homework. and then it's all paid for by the taxpayer with these loans up front, many of which will never be paid back, particularly on these low-value courses. And, you know, and then the graduates come out of it with 50 grand of debt, which will hang around their necks like a millstone for the next 40 years. It's truly shocking.
But this is the problem, isn't it, Ian, that in the long term, students and the taxpayer end up paying through the nose for these courses, but in the short term, immediately, to the student at least, the university course feels free at the point of delivery. And why would you scrutinise too much what the long-term implications of studying would be if you're getting it for free right now? And in the report you say that the two sacred cows that have to be slayed if we're going to have reform are expansion and marketisation. Could you expand on that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an area where there has been a sort of a level of cross-party consensus for almost 30 years. So expansion you can trace back to, well, none other than Tony Blair, his famous 50% target for people to go to higher education. But it got continued on all through the coalition years, up to when David Willetts took off the number controls of universities, just to allow as many people who wanted to go for, paid for by the taxpayer, by those upfront loans. And so you had this huge explosion in the number of people going. And some of the best stats show that at least 30% of those people see no financial benefit at all. And that's probably an underestimate, because that was done on a cohort which started university about 15 years ago, and since then the graduate premium has dropped a lot. So you got that. But then at the same time we have marketisation, and this is something which you know, I did work as a special advisor under Conservative government, and you know, often I think the market can be very good. In schools, for example, parent choice has been really powerful at driving up standards, but actually in universities, when we relied on this sort of marketisation, on this choice, it didn't work for the same work at all. And in fact, what we've had is it's been a disaster. So we've not had any of the sort of price differentiation you might see. You pay the same amount to go to Teesside to be a social worker as you do to go to LSE to be an investment banker. Well, how is that fair? We've seen universities pandering to things like the National Student Survey, which measures student satisfaction and encourages them to dumb down, to hand out more firsts in order to boost their satisfaction scores, which go into the league tables. And then again in schools, you have this parental choice, you have free schools, academies, fantastic stuff there. But because we had proper accountability, we had exam boards which set national exams, A-levels and GCSEs, the phonics test in primary schools, and then we have Ofsted, which comes in as rigorous. You know, school fails, you come in, you kick out the head teacher, they can be forced to join a successful academy. Universities, and none of that accountability. The regulator, the Office of Students, is a toothless regulator. As I've already talked about how they mark their own homework. And so because of that, we've had a race to the bottom, offering, of course, huge explosion in courses such as sociology and related studies, the business studies, which I mentioned before, which has grown enormously. Incredible amounts of growth in creative arts, a fascinating study. The average man who goes to do creative arts at university will be £100,000 worse off over his lifetime than if he had never gone at all. And yet, the proportion, of course, like almost 10% of all of our sectors are in sort of creative arts and design and similar subjects.
Ian
Absolutely
Mansfield,
astonishing.
We are going to have to leave it there, but
That's
absolutely fascinating. A brilliant statistic, and certainly a sector that is ripe for reform.
Now, government spokesman said, we're cracking down on poor quality courses so that students can be confident they're getting value for money from universities while making the system fairer by introducing targeted maintenance grants and capping interest rates on student loans. Interest rates on student loans, they're like spibs. It's outrageous the way they're profiteering.
You have to earn £66,000 a year just to keep up with the interest if you had a loan between 2012 and 2023, I think. Well, coming up next, the White House has told Sir Keir Starmer not to ban social media for under-16s to protect the US tech giants. But is it any of their business? We'll be going through that and more with Piers Pottinger and Kevin Maguire. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 29 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Joined again by the panel, political commentator Piers Pottinger and Kevin Maguire, who he and I will be recording our podcast later today.
We will.
Piers and Maguire.
A weekly plug.
Tell us about e-bikes, smart bikes.
Oh, this is a glorious, glorious tale that Kingston Council, South West London, used to live down there, Liberal Democrat controlled.
Is that why you used to live there?
Actually, it was Conservative when I first moved, but you lost it. And it's now very Lib Dem. But anyway, they put out a tender for e-bikes, and their pitch for why they'd be good for women is because by having these, they would look nice on a bike. What? They would stay looking nice, and that would enable them to, and I'm quoting from this Liberal Democrat document, or they can perform their traditional domestic responsibilities.
And what are they, cooking and doing the cleaning?
I would hope so, but there again, if you're on an e-bike, you're not at home doing all that. But it is utterly...
Are you sure this isn't a spoof?
I was going to say,
The council have disowned it and said, look, it's outdated
Someone's
views.
taking the mick.
I know.
It's some young
utterly brilliant.
Who thinks...
Chap or woman.
What can I get away with? I think that's
you'd look
brilliant.
nice on an e-bike, Miriam?
I've got an e-bike.
Oh, well,
I don't know if I look nice on it. It's quite
does
fun.
Does it enable you to do
blooming
your
fast.
domestic duties more assiduously?
Well, no, because you can't actually take it to the supermarket because you can't lock them up easily because they're very nickable. So you need an enormous, like a motorbike lock, if you're going to take it to... If you're going to use it for, something useful rather than for fitness, then they're pretty inconvenient, really.
Often do you look nice on an e-bike, Piers?
Yes, you'd look nice on anything. But actually, what this is...
That's a very good answer.
This is
I feel like you've said this before.
This is a Lib Dem. They're laying the ground for their leader, Ed Davey, to get on a unicycle, go round Parliament Square juggling some old lemonade bottles.
Yeah.
That's obviously, that's the kind of measure of the Lib Dem thinking. It's all silly.
It's silly.
Ludicrous and utter nonsense.
And I'd love to know what Daisy Cooper, the Lib Dem deputy leader, makes of this case.
Oh, she'll disown it. I mean, there's no question. Look, I think e-bikes are a good thing because more people go cycling.
They're a menace.
But there are questions on they're supposed to be limited to 15.5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's quite fast anyway, without a helmet or a number plate, because they're like mopeds.
They're a real nuisance for pedestrians.
Yeah.
And my view is that any vehicle on the highway should be subject to the highway code.
Yes.
And e-bikes and e-scooters, which are even worse, because I've nearly been hit by them on the pavements, whizzing round a corner blindly. These are dangerous, and no government seems remotely interested in doing something they normally love doing, which is bringing in new laws to stop people doing these.
I think motorised transport has to be regulated better. And there's a gap here because they are.
There's a review, but the review's been underway for yonks.
Yeah, I see people on them, and they're just, no helmets for a start, but they're just going too fast. And if you cycle yourself
all the time, and they come up behind you, they could be.
And they're silent, so you can't hear them. And I think that, as I said before, if you're on the highway, everyone, not just people driving cars, everyone should be subject to the highway code.
We're under pressure of time. Sometimes, very briefly, should Ben Stokes, who's the England captain, who's got into an altercation in a nightclub with a rugby player, be stripped of the captaincy of the team?
Well,
having just won a test match.
Sadly, I think he probably will have to, because he's the captain and he should be leading by example. However, if he was before the curfew, we don't yet know the full details. If it was before the curfew and he was attacked by a drunken rugby player, which it does look as though that was the case, then I think there may be mitigating circumstances. But preferably, the England captain should not be gallivanting around nightclubs late at night in the middle of a test series.
Very briefly, Kevin.
Yeah, I was at Lords on Saturday. I'll go to the Oval playing New Zealand week after next. England have got a drinking culture problem in cricket. There's no doubt. The Aussies tour was marred. I mean, one night was like a stag night, said the locals. The vice-captain, Harry Brook, got punched by a bouncer. Stokes is a brilliant cricketer, and I think a really interesting bloke. He's had trouble before. He was acquitted in the court case. We don't know, as you say, the details, but if he's broken the curfew, and the curfew is there to stop this type of behaviour...
I think the drinking problem is
sadly
they can't get enough of it.
Yeah, sadly, you lose a captaincy.
I think he's probably quite a brave man, Ben Stokes, because reportedly the man he took on was a 6'5" 20 stone rugby player. So he's lucky that he's still alive.
Yeah, quite. Now we have to go back to e-bikes because Kingston Council have made a statement which must be welcoming their ludicrous sexist approach to women. Why don't you read it, Mary?
Well, we're committed to fairness and equality of opportunity to ensure Kingston is a place where we celebrate diversity and tackle inequality. From our investigations into how this happened, we understand this description was a direct quote from a peer-reviewed academic paper which was used as part of the research for the assessment.
What academic would come up with rubbish like that?
Women cycling...
What did Kemi call them?
Silly
academics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, women meeting their domestic responsibilities and men having fights in pubs.
I'm sure Miriam always fulfills her domestic responsibility. Mr. Miriam, would you like to tune in and tell us if she does?
Stories on your say. Well, here's your 60-second news update with Sophia Wenser.
Your headlines at 11:35. The Prime Minister has condemned what he called a sickening and horrific stabbing attack in Belfast. A man who police believe to be Somalian and in his 30s has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after the knife attack that left a man in his 40s with serious injuries. The Conservatives have pledged to restore common sense, saying diversity rules for public sector bodies should be scrapped following the murder of Henry Novak. US President Donald Trump has warned the Prime Minister against imposing a social media ban for under 16s, arguing that it could harm freedom of speech. Ben Stokes' position as England Test captain is hanging in the balance after an alleged altercation at a nightclub yesterday in the early hours of the morning. The England and Wales Cricket Board is investigating the England captain and bowler Gus Atkinson for a breach of team protocols following the first test against New Zealand. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Emily. Welcome back, Tom. Now, what's going up on the show? I imagine this government statement's going to be pretty critical.
Well, absolutely. We've going to be with Doogie Beattie, of course, at the scene of this horrendous attack. We're going to be getting political reaction as well. We're going to be speaking to Alex Burkhardt, who is the Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, see what he has to say about all this. But yes, that urgent question.
Exactly, at 12:30, we're expecting the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland to respond on behalf of the government and perhaps set out some more information, because I think a lot of people are very concerned that, again, and it does seem again and again and again in cases like this, there are photos out there on the internet, pictures out there on the internet, and yet what we've heard officially from authorities is vanishingly little. And this creates a massive vacuum into which there is speculation, which is unhelpful. The government has a duty to let us know what is going on and some of the details of this suspect.
Although they have given us more than normal.
They have.
They've said Somalian. Man.
And foreign national, according to the government statement.
Foreign national. So we do know more than normal. Of course, we know very little else. But that horrific video footage.
And Hilary Benn is who's the Northern Ireland State, one of the more experienced cabinet ministers, so he will be all over this. And because you can see now there's going to be a real political row about
you have people on the left in Northern Ireland politics, Northern Irish politics, coming out to say this should not be used by the far right. This shouldn't be used to divide. Warnings about this sort of thing. People from the SDLP. So
they're presumably saying reform of the far right, are they?
Well, they haven't mentioned.
But that's what they mean.
But this is, I think, a very strange response to a crime that we should be careful about talking about, because, of course, charges are yet to be brought, and there are difficulties there. But in the generality, when an incident happens that could have been prevented by a policy change, the response of some is to say, you can't possibly talk about changing policy, which seems to me to be the most extraordinary response.
Don't politicise, is what we get told.
That's right, because there are all... It's never going to be the case that you can eliminate crime, of course not, but there are many things you can do in response to particular problems that would keep people safer. How can you argue against that?
And Kemi Badenoch sounded very sensible on that when she was asked by Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, on that point, and she said, well, if, there are... people will want to know whether this is a recent migrant and it could have been prevented by policy changes. So, spot on.
Are our dodgy borders a factor?
Well, this is the thing. Don't politicise something. Politics is there to solve problems in society. I mean, saying don't politicise something is almost saying, well, don't try and fix those problems. Don't talk about it. Don't debate it. Don't discuss it.
Absolutely.
Well, all that's coming up and more at midday. But up next, police say a man believed to be a Somali has been arrested on suspicion of murder after that brutal attack in North Belfast.
We'll have the latest on this breaking news. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More heavy downpours to come today. There'll be some sunny spells between the hefty showers, but when the showers come along, we may well hear a crack of thunder or see a flash of lightning. Low pressure is dominating, but sitting way away, just sending really bands of showers across the country through the day. I say between the downpours, there'll be some sunny spells, some beautiful skyscapes to witness today. But as the showers develop, particularly over northeast England, eastern Scotland this afternoon, some thunderstorms, some hailstones likely. Perhaps not as many showers further south, so a decent chance of some lengthier bright spells with a bit of sunshine. Not really going to do much to the temperatures though, mostly on the cool side, struggling a few degrees below the average for the middle part of June. As we go through the evening, still a lot of heavy showers around. As I said, not as many across the south, so there'll be some lengthy spells of sunshine here to end the day, but showers never too far away, moving in on a brisk wind. Plenty of showers for North Wales, Northern Ireland, and the heaviest ones in this zone really northeast England into eastern parts of Scotland, where we're most at risk from some thunderstorms. And through the day, the wind's lighter in northeast Scotland, which means if you do get a shower, it could last for quite some time. It's not a lot to move it along. So some heavy downpours here. They'll continue into the evening. Overnight showers will continue to feed into western areas, but I suspect much of the Midlands, much of eastern England and eventually eastern Scotland becoming mostly dry through the night with lengthy clear spells. That'll allow the temperatures to dip down potentially into single digits, certainly across Scotland and Northern Ireland. On to Wednesday, it's more of the same. Another day where, yes, you may well see some sunny spells, but you really need to be prepared for some heavy downpours too. Showers through the morning in north-west England, and then by the afternoon they're becoming much more widespread. And again, it's across eastern areas where we could well see the heaviest ones. And again, through tomorrow, there will be a risk of thunderstorms once more. Bye for now.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:42. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, a man is seriously injured in hospital after being stabbed repeatedly in the neck in North Belfast late last night. It was described by witnesses as an attempted beheading. Police have confirmed a Somalian man, a foreign national, has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder.
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, says he has absolutely no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on the streets.
Let's talk to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, we've got an emergency statement in the Commons this afternoon with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Hilary Benn.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is it's a question forced on the government, an urgent question granted by the Speaker in response to pressure from Gavin Robinson, of course, the Westminster leader for the DUP. It's not a statement volunteered by the government, so they may be limited in what the government can say, but clearly that indicates the scale of concern about what we're seeing on social media overnight, 10:30 p.m. last night, and from Dougie Beattie's reporting on the ground in Belfast. There we're seeing correctly pixelated images there of what on earth was seen last night. Kemi Badenoch in the past hour has said this. She is absolutely horrified, but she asks the questions many are asking. She says, is it the case that this person should not have been in this country? Is it a failure of the authorities to control the borders? We don't know how this person came here via this route. It came here via any route. Is it the case that we need to look at that? Look at the statement, though, granted in Parliament today. This is almost an indication of what we're looking at. They say there it involved a foreign national. That suggests this individual was not born in this country. Let's find out later how this person may have arrived here, and is that going to become a big issue for this government? Keir Starmer, for his part, he's saying the horrific attack in Belfast is sickening. I have absolutely no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on our streets. My thoughts are first and foremost with the victims, and I thank the first responders, including members of the public who intervened. Of course, Dougie Beattie telling us that some members of the public intervened with a hurling stick to indicate what was happening there. For other politicians, Nigel Farage, he says what happened was horrific too. The authorities must reveal the identity and status of the attacker immediately. The public are entitled to the truth. And we've heard in the past half an hour from Emma Little-Pengelly. She's the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland, speaking to members of the Northern Ireland Assembly, calling the attack shocking and barbaric and an assault on our values that bind us together. This violence has no place in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, of course, is a part of the UK which has experienced its share, more than its share, of violence in recent decades. But this attack appears to have struck and impacted the community in a way never before seen in many years.
Well, Chris Hope, thank you very much for that. That's Christopher Hope speaking from our Westminster studio.
And we'll be going to Belfast to get the latest on the ground. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Lots of sunshine on offer across Italy this Wednesday. Still a bit more cloud and the chance of 1 or 2 showers over eastern Spain. A cool breeze blowing in Madeira. Sunny spells, though, for the Canaries. Lots of sunshine for the Algarve. There's that cloudier weather over eastern Spain. Small chance of a shower or 2 here. And inland over Greece, 1 or 2 showers are possible on Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine over the Greek islands. More sunshine to come through Italy, and we'll see temperatures on the rise in Barcelona this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Which of us doesn't like a puffin? Which of us doesn't like a dolphin? I mean, come on, we love these creatures. I bet your fellow guest loves them. Let's ask him, shall we?
OK. Rafe, how do you feel about dolphins?
Yeah, there's nothing uniquely British about the dolphin. There are very few uniquely British species. And the key point here is that it's young nations that use flora and fauna. Nations with a proud history and legacy such as Britain does, we celebrate our past, we celebrate our great achievements. Banknotes are a symbol of national identity, and they are symbols of sovereignty. They rank right up there with the flag, the crown, with our coat of arms, and our honour system as symbols of the British nation. We live in an age now where people are so ignorant of history. Banknotes are one of the very few occasions when people actually get to be introduced to historical figures and learn about them.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
He or she is obliged to write an equality impact assessment for every single policy that Kingston Council does. This person has come up with something which is simply true. Women do more domestic tasks than men. Women like to look nice. This person has stated something true. For this, the Kingston Council has now, and I'll read it out, they've apologised. They've issued a statement. Guess what? They've launched an investigation. And now they're going to review their procedures. I mean, this is a woke doom spiral. And it's the faster we can get away from these equality impact assessments, the public sector equality duty that drives all this, the better.
The People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dorothea, how does it feel being here today, joining other veterans?
Everybody was so friendly in those days. We had one purpose in life, which was to free the world from Nazism and to get on with enjoying life. And it's so nice now that still looking to see if any of us are left, poor old dears, so they can say thank you and we can get together and talk about it. After the war, you simply didn't mention it. It went out of everybody's consciousness.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. And some breaking news this morning. A man is seriously injured in hospital after being stabbed repeatedly in the neck in North Belfast late last night.
Police in Northern Ireland confirmed a Somalian man, he's a foreign national in his 30s, has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder.
Well, let's speak to GB News' Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. Doogie, thank you for joining us. And, of course, one of the reasons that this case is sparking so much outrage is because of the footage circulating online, which appears to show the suspect attempting to behead the victim.
Well, it does, and the footage is very, very damning. And it's strange how there is attacks throughout Northern Ireland, throughout the rest of Britain, and when there's no video footage of it, it doesn't bring it home to people. This really does. I mean, I seen things here last night that I legally cannot say right now. This man will have, if he survives, will have life-changing injuries. There's no doubt about that. But the big question on the streets around here is how did this man get into Northern Ireland? Was it through the UK? Did he come across that way? Was he legal? Did he go through the proper procedures, or did he come in through the Republic of Ireland, where so many are coming through, and then travel across a borderless border and up into Northern Ireland and then claim refugee status? That is the problem. That's the question that's being asked here, and both sides of the community here in Northern Ireland. Where I'm standing actually is almost like a peace line. This is a little Republican enclave, and there's Girdwood Barracks and then the loyalist area of the Shankill Road. And last night there was many from the Shankill Road here. That would have been unheard of, giving their support and really trying to work with the community here to make things better for everybody, because that immigration is going the whole way throughout Belfast and these deprived areas in particular. So politicians now calling for calm. The police have released what they can legally release, and we await to see what happens next.
Doogie, thank you so much for that report. Doogie Beattie there in Northern Ireland. And of course, GB News will be covering this story all day, including there is to be a statement in Parliament this afternoon.
The Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn will respond to a question from the DUP leader group in Parliament this afternoon. It will be highly charged. Good Afternoon Britain will be covering that. And I predict this is set to become another major political story.
Absolutely, sadly. So, well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. We'll be back tomorrow. But up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, do stay with us for continued coverage, including a statement in the House of Commons on this terrible incident in Northern Ireland.
Yes, we're getting further reaction from Irish commentators, and the Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland will also be speaking to us, reacting to that hideous attack in North Belfast. We're also going to be talking about Kemi Badenoch. She wants to boot identity politics out of public services following the horrific murder of Henry Novak. Stay with us. We're on GB News. Good Afternoon Britain, 12 till 3.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A lot of showers around today, some big beefy ones as well. Hail, thunder, lightning, all possible, with some sunny spells in between. We're starting with a zone of cloud and showery rain across central and eastern England. That'll work out into the North Sea, then sunshine and then lots of showers. Already following into Northern Ireland and Scotland. As I mentioned, some pretty intense downpours likely. One of those days where 1 minute you've got a biblical downpour, 15 minutes later the sun is out. And certainly in the south in the afternoon, the emphasis will be a bit more on sunshine and not as many showers, but it's not going to be a warm day, feeling cooler in the breeze and when the downpours come along, of which there'll still be plenty of them around as we go through the evening. Still a few thunderstorms likely to rumble on also, but parts of the south, as I say, seeing some good spells of sunshine to end the day. Plenty of showers for North Wales, Northern Ireland, coming and going throughout the day, as they will across much of Northern England and Scotland. Don't be surprised if you get caught out by a hail shower coming in. The wind's a little lighter over northern Scotland, so the showers are a little more slow-moving perhaps here. As we go through the evening time, the showers will continue to fade in many central and eastern parts, so some lengthy dry and clear spells here, but we'll always keep some showers feeding in on a fairly brisk westerly wind. So the showers keeping going for much of Wales, northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland. With some clearer skies, we could well dip down into the mid-single figures in rural spots. Most towns and cities start Wednesday about 7 to 9 Celsius. Another day of showers to come tomorrow as well. Again, like today, there'll be some spells of sunshine, certainly to start with over eastern Scotland, but also like today, where the showers do occur, yes, they'll be moving through, but they could turn into thundery downpours with hail and lightning possible too. Maybe turning a bit drier in Wales and southwest England for the afternoon. Still quite blustery and still on the cool side.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of